Hey guys, what's up? This is Patrick. In this video we are going to be playing one table of Russian cash, and by playing one table I hope to be able to go deeper into specific spots that we're facing and try to explain some of the exploits that I'll be using in this pool a bit better. Ace-4, Kaspi here, playing versus someone who is trending a bit tighter. Get a relatively quick 4-bet, so we just fold here. This might be a call in equilibrium, but if we are playing versus someone that is tighter, I just like to overfold. I think we can 3-bet wider because we shouldn't be getting 4-bet as often. On average, the pool is going to be 3-betting, 4-betting slightly less often when they're in position, a lot less often when they're out of position. And then once they do 4-bet, we just want to overfold. I'm going to play a very exploitative style, so I'm basically going to play 3-bet or fold here and just continue everything as a 3-bet. This is going to be, like, you could probably just fold this as well, but I'm playing just one table, so playing 3-bet or fold there because we are not getting 4-bet enough out of position, so we want to leverage that. Basically, if we don't pay the tax of getting 4-bet as often, even if they're not overfolding, solvers would very quickly start 3-betting significantly more to basically deny equity by our opponents. Like if we 3-bet and he folds, that's going to be great. We win the pot, that's a lot of EV. And if he calls, then we still get to realize all of our equity, so that's going to be good. Here we are playing versus someone that is going to be a bit more capable and seems to be playing a lot more aggressive. So I'm going to shove here. This is going to be close, but Ace-5 is going to be okay to shove here. It's not ideal, but if he's playing 28 VPIP and I've marked him as an aggressive regular, then I just gotta make sure that I have shoves there. So very quickly you can see the difference between when we get 4-bet by someone that is not capable of 4-betting, or maybe is capable but just playing too many tables or whatever, he's just not doing it often enough, and then by someone who is capable. And we could call there as well, by the way, calling would be reasonable. Relatively interesting spot here, so we open pre-flop, we get a call by a tight-ish regular. I could go ahead and bet here, I could check back, either way would be fine. Betting for min sizing is going to be a very good simplification here. Just betting your entire range, you're not really losing EV. And the exploits that the mistakes that your opponent are going to be making are very clear. He's going to be check raising too many of his flush draws on that board. So if we go back here, getting a check raise here, your alarm bell should be going off because your opponent should be check raising hands like Queen 10, Ace 10, and some other gut shots, Queen 9, occasionally, and he should be check calling a lot of his flushes. And usually people are doing the opposite, they're check calling some draws and they are check raising their stronger hands. So it plays relatively straightforward, and that also means that if we end up in a spot where we get a check call, we can assume that our opponent doesn't have as many flushes in his range, which means that we can go lighter for value and by larger sizes. This is going to be indifferent. What you'd want to get an idea of is how likely is it that you are going to win the pot post-flop. It's basically as simple as that. If you expect this guy to be more tightish, then and maybe not very good, then you are able to call pre-flop profitably, because for instance we call the flop here, turn goes check check, and we get to bluff and he's going to massively overfold. That is going to be very good for hands like this that don't really win pairs that get the value bet very often. And then if you're playing versus someone that is a lot more aggressive, maybe second barreling too often, or just generally a much better player, then you might want to start folding some of these indifferent hands. So here on the river this is pretty close. I think I'm going to check raise if we get a bet here, and I'm going to shove here. My opponent should be checking back with flushes on the turn, and I don't think that he is going to do that at the rate that he should be doing it. And so I'm going to shove. It's a pretty cool exploit, and especially if you river the 6, you also block some of the 6s, pocket 6s. So either he checks back, you realize your equity, or you put him into a spot where he is basically there's nothing he can do at the moment that he's checking back. Too weak on the turn, and like I said, roughly 15 to 20% of your flushes need to be checked back on flush closing turns. If you're not doing that, then suddenly you're like flushes on the river there, and if he would, let's say you would start bluff catching a lot lighter, then you simply are making more money with your flushes, which are going to take this line occasionally as well. So I think a very cool exploit there. Opening pocket sevens here, getting a call. And let's see, we're playing versus 25-16 over 1,000 hands, so the typical recreational that is playing Zoom. Right, we'll fold. Here we end up at King 9. Are we incentivized to go ahead and squeeze? I think this is, like, I'm squeezing too wide here, but I think this guy's not going to 4-bet me enough. Clearly, he's been playing more tight. These guys are going to be folding quite often. Occasionally, obviously, my opponent will 4-bet, and maybe the sample is, maybe he's just running bet over the sample, but like the entire player profile, him being Chinese and playing more of a tightish style, usually indicates that they're going to be under 4-betting. And the pool is under 4-betting massively to begin with. So calling would be very reasonable there. Calling is not a mistake, and calling would even be considered standard, I think. It's just that I think in this situation, versus someone who's not really showing to be very aggressive, I'm just not getting 4-bet at the frequency that I should be getting 4-bet at. And it's not going to be close, so I just want to play a 4-bet there. Going to be opening too wide here. My opponent is on the tighter side, although he's been 3-betting reasonable amounts here over this sample. If your opponent is not putting enough money into the pool, then generally you can open a bit wider. This is a fair bit wider, to be honest, but I think this is going to be working out fine. This is a player type that will under 3-bet on average, and even if he's playing reasonable 3-betting ranges, then he will overfold post-flop quite a bit. So I think overall this is just going to be a fine play versus him. And if you're playing these games, then this is how you win. You are meant to be very greedy in these situations and be on the side of aggression pretty much always. Especially in the smaller pots that people just don't really care for very much. You want to go and go pretty aggressive. Here I'm going to be calling. I could raise occasionally, but people bet too strong of a range when they bet larger and too weak of a range when they bet smaller, so they over-calling when I check raise here. Still could check raise this hand, but I'm going to be under check raising, and this hand is a fine call. Here it's an interesting spot. I could choose to call, lead some rivers. I could raise, which I'm probably going to do. It's kind of a weird spot though. Like, I think his range is too strong, which is kind of weird. So like raising and then getting shoved on is like a nightmare. Still, my hand is going to be an okay raise. It's not going to be, and it's going to be an okay raise because it's not going to be a great call either. Folding is, I don't think, an option. I think calling and raising both are reasonable. Now we get shoved on and have to fold all this beautiful equity. Luckily, we would have missed, but yeah, like there's basically no great way to play that hand. Opening queens here. Yeah, pretty aggressive guy. I'm just going to 4-bet and stack it off here. Relatively happily. Going pretty small because we are in position. Could go a bit larger than this, but this is fine. We just call very quickly. It's kind of annoying. I think usually people think a bit about aces or do a fake time bank or something like that, but yeah. We get lucky in the first one, and it seems to be, oh, never mind. We win both. It's always good. I'm going to check back here. I'm going to have an indifferent bet and check. I imagine, actually quite high frequency check, but I'm going to be mixing is kind of what I was trying to say. On a texture like this is going to be a fine check. And then on the turn, it will largely depend on what he's doing here, whether I want to go one way or another. We get another check. I have this guy marked as a tighter player. So I'm expecting him to overfold here. Do we really want him to overfold when we hold a6? It's going to be pretty close. I think I just want to check and get one street closer to the showdown. But like I said, pretty close here. And then here on the river, he checks quickly, which basically indicates that he's massively overfolding if I bet here, which is sort of what I would be expecting. And I'm just going to bet 40% of the pot so he can call weaker pairs here sometimes, but I think basically expect him to give up always. I could c-bet here, open preflop, could c-bet here. I could check back. Either option is going to be fine. I think I'm going to check here, like the 6 and the 4. On this actually you're not necessarily betting your entire range. My hand wants to check quite a bit, I think. On the turn here, I am going to go ahead and block bet. I'm probably just going to bet min. Get some value, get some protection. Both are going to be good. Like if he folds queen jack of diamonds here, it's going to be good. And the river is going to be close whether I can value bet this. I think I can if I just go half fold here, so that's what I'm going to do. But it's definitely close. I would be severely over bluffing there as well. I wanted to at least have considered opening there. Like we can't see the hand right now. No, we just can't see the hand because we auto-folded it. Alright, versus the cutoff I'm folding versus the big blind I'm calling. Paired board, easy range bet, nothing much to say. Getting 3-bet here by a recreational that's playing very nitty, which is extremely common in this game. His 3-bet frequency is 3%. People are under 3-betting the big blind specifically, so I want to be very careful. The thing is that our odds are going to be very good here, and we have a reasonable amount of implied odds if we hit a reasonable hand. So it's kind of a weird one where in equilibrium versus that sizing, you'd basically defend pretty much everything. Something like Jack 3 suited is going to be defending there, even in this reg structure. If he goes just 3x, but well, I'm opening here, but he has a very tight range, so we want to be somewhat careful still. Also, he's going to c-bet the flop and turn much more often than a regular would, so we are not realizing as much. Here we opened, we get a check. I'm just going to bet my on this like paired boards. I actually can't bet my entire range. On the turn here, I have pretty much not low. I suspect that this guy is going to under defend though if I raise. So especially if he bets small. So I'm just going to raise with a spade. If I didn't have a spade, I would fold there. But with a spade, it is going to be close enough that I think raising is going to be reasonable. So this is basically me playing just a tag. If I have a light blue or a blue tag, I'm going to be raising significantly more often there. If I'm facing someone that is somewhat capable, which is usually the orange tag, then I am going to raise more but not as often. More than the solver would versus small sizing, because when they bet small they're overfolding versus raises, but not as often as I would there. So I would probably just find more raises with mixes. But if my hand is a pure fold, I would still be folding. Okay, here we have someone that is playing fast fold, but he might as well just play on the regular table because he plays every hand. On a disconnected texture, I'm just going to bet my entire range for a small sizing versus someone that seems capable. On the turn here, I'm going to be going with a big bet and a check because it's a broken disconnected texture and I don't really want to bet any 6x or 7x or many 7x at least. And then this is going to be one of the most frequent checks with air. A river is going to be close where I want to be betting here. I think I want to just check and lose the majority of the times. Sometimes he's going to check by king 9 or something like that and a win, but usually it's some ace higher, yeah, ace high pair, stuff like that. But I don't necessarily expect to get enough folds versus someone that seems reasonable over this sample to be able to fold, to be able to bluff there. It's close though, but yeah, I think this is a fine line to take. I was going to say I'm going to 3-bet here pretty liberally and with a wide linear range. So I would go smaller. Ooh, that's cool. Wow. Did we win one? Did we win one? No, we weren't. We weren't playing that table. We are going to. We could call. We could 3-bet. I'm going to call here. 3-betting would be reasonable. Just exploit it. Isolating him. This is a fine line to take as well. Here I'm just going to block bet for value / protection. Good turn. I am going to keep on betting small, I think. I think he just rarely has a boat here when he takes his line. And so I want to extract value from his ace king, ace jack, ace 10, maybe the occasional jack 10, or I want those hands to fold. Preferably we get a call there, obviously. We could check back as well and let those hands bluff, but I think this is a fine line to take as well. Pretty cool open here, pretty standard open here with king jack actually. So I'm going to mix in a fair amount of checks on this low disconnected texture, especially with my king highs. Like this is kind of the hand that wants to check most, I think. If I want to pick some bets, then I want to probably have the suits that are not on the board a bit more often, so I get more calls by queen jack. Let's say I have like the diamond, king of diamonds, then I get called by queen jack of spades, hearts, and clubs that I block. Although I don't think it's too relevant to be honest here. I'm going to call here. This is going to be an equilibrium call. It's relatively close, but it should be fine. And we get a block bet here. This is close. I think I want to call here. This is pretty close though. I'm going to call. I see enough random stuff. I'm going to call. It's close. That's a very nice value bet by him. I don't think he's going to be value betting ace high there, which is kind of why I wanted to call. I'm not saying that he should necessarily, but I thought for the sizing there might be some in there. This is pretty close, to be honest. Like, yeah, the 10 specifically. Like if it's somewhat more disconnected, if it was a 3, it would probably be a better call. Now it's a bit spewy, but yeah, I don't blame myself too much. I always play a little bit spewy and get flamed in the comments, so I'm ready to take it on the chin again for this one. For this word, the average rack has about 22-23% unpaired hands on average here. So it's already pretty close with some removal and stuff like that. It's a relatively close spot. Paired board, low board, there's more offsuited higher cards that are in there. Some of which are blocked, which is, yeah, the removal. Yeah, it's pretty close. Like I think we can just call our aces, and like that's probably the solution. Just call your ace highs and don't really care about stuff like this as much, but yeah, tempted to just click call. Opening because the players behind me are too tight. This is something you should always look for when you're playing these games. Should be very flexible if you're playing versus guys that have like 0, 13 hands, small sample. This guy, more of a sample and is also too tight. Let's just assume we have reasonable sample here then. Like if you see low numbers behind you, you should go significantly wider in these situations. If you see a lot of high numbers, or in my case red tags, which means aggressive, then you want to go and open tighter. Usually you want to open a fair bit wider in these games. I'm going to go ahead and just keep barreling this. This is not going to be a thing in equilibrium, but versus the pool it works quite well. So I'm going to be betting too much air here for sure. And then versus the more nitty players, I'm just going completely out of line in that spot. I think that's going to be reasonable. I could call my hand here. I could 3-bet, reasonable frequency 3-bet, but I'm calling this time because, well, this guy is slightly better than the average. When I say slightly better, I don't mean disrespect. I have no idea how good he is actually. He seems to be playing pretty well. So I want to, yeah, like mix him some calls with hands like this as well. Checking back here I think is reasonable. We could bet as well. Betting is, like it's going to be a mix there, and you're going to mix a lot of hands, and you just want to make sure that you don't check too weak and bet too strong. And if you do that, then you're going to be doing okay. This is pretty close already. It's a pretty good card for him, and he goes relatively large, 3/4, and they're generally a little bit too strong there. My hand is pretty, I wanted to fold. My hand is pretty weak in terms of how strong of a range I have. It is going to be pretty strong. Like it's relatively high up in my range because, well, let me just open this. Because we're going to have a lot of hands that are going to be weaker here when you check back the flop. So I would be calling versus half pot for sure, versus smaller for sure. Versus 3/4 it's kind of iffy because usually people are too honest with their bet sizes here. This is like the key data point. He could go and block bet small here if he wants to, even if it's not really a thing in equilibrium. No one is going to notice, and so when he would bet smaller here, he could just get folds by pocket 4s, some high card hands, maybe pocket 6s, especially if your opponent is just playing the outer fold a bit too much. And then if you bet larger, like basically they generally bet larger when they have a stronger hand. So I want to be careful there. It was a close spot, and I ended up folding simply because he goes and bets too large. Another argument that I forgot to mention here, going back, we faced this bet of 75% on the turn. The range is too strong, and that is going to be an important reason to just be a bit more careful. But at the same time, they're also following through on the river more often. So our hand is going to be pretty close on the turn, but definitely a fold on most rivers unless we improve. And we know that he's going to be betting the river more often, so we are more incentivized to let go of those weaker hands on the turn. And if you look at the data, in pretty much every spot where they have multiple sizes, like situation like that, like any probing line, any stabbing line, any delayed c-betting line, people are too honest with their bet sizes. So when you face a larger bet, you need to be very careful. When you face a small bet, you need to be very aggressive. You could have some checks on a texture like this, but mostly betting my entire range for a small sizing. Getting a little bit of a waiting period before checking and then calling means he was either considering folding or raising, or just preoccupied with someone else. Very quick check on the river means I have the best hand here. And means that we are going to go ahead and overbet, I think. He's going to overfold quite a bit, but I just think I have the best hand pretty much always. I would be severely overbluffing if I got to check that quickly, and I'm aware enough to notice it if you're not playing 4 tables or whatever. So yeah, like those are basically the things that you want to take into consideration. Value bet thinner, or at least like larger for the same, like not necessarily thinner. Actually, you might want to bet slightly less thin because of the overfold, but you want to be more honest with your bet sizings and maybe increase the bet sizings a little bit with your entire range, both bluffs and value, although like specifically bluffs, specifically value, bluffs don't really matter that much. Betting a lot more with your bluffs and value betting somewhat thinly for larger sizes. Getting a 3-bet by a player that seems to be under 3-betting, this is already pretty close. I'm just going to fold pure here. I'm going to overfold versus this player when I face the 3-bet, slightly under 4-bet. So the way it usually works is if you're defending this, both calling and raising, your defending will go down a fair bit, but your 4-betting just goes down a little bit. You're still going to 4-bet something like queens reasonably often there, even if he under 3-bets, but you are never going to be calling all of the close to indifferent hands. So relatively speaking, the defending range becomes a larger portion 4-bets, relatively speaking, not necessarily larger overall. I'm going to be doing a lot of checking here, but I think like basically the weaker my high card hand is, the less likely I'm going to be winning at showdown. The better it would be if he folds hands like Queen Jack, King 9 offsuit right now, so I'm just going to be betting relatively large. My opponent should have a leading range on his 6. It's going to be a pretty good card for him. I'm going to be betting hands like this. I'm going to be betting aces, kings, queens, stuff like a7. I am going to connect somewhat with like the 6 as well because I'm going to have 9, 8, but I don't have the offsuited hands. He should have them. This is going to be a pretty good card for my opponent, and he should have a leading range because he's only calling like hands that sort of connect with this board when he calls the flop. Therefore, I need to be very careful when I bet the turn here. It's a relatively tempting call when he just goes this small. If I had 9-10, I would definitely call. Now, I'm getting 5-1. I don't think I'm getting much more in there. I'm just going to fold, I think. If I had 9-10, I would call, but yeah, like there's just no real implied odds there when the river is a 4 straight. Like he could have 9-8, I would be dead. It's pretty close. Like I think checking the turn would be very reasonable here, simply because he should be leading, and I don't think he is. I'm not saying he should be leading as in he should be leading range, but he should be leading at a reasonable frequency here for min sizing or maybe 20% sizing. All right, I'm going to click sit out next big blind. Let's see if there's another interesting hand. If not, then I'm just going to say thank you for watching. If you guys have any comments, feedback, whatever, just drop it in the comment section down below. There's a link to our Discord server as well. And I will put up a link to my new course on Run It Once called Dominate with Data, which is going to be a very extensive course where I outline all of the principles that I explained in this video and a lot more, note by note, formation by formation. So if you're interested in that, please check it out. And for now, if you're going to be playing today, good luck at the tables and talk to you guys soon. Bye.